LL221 Tel Aviv Tower, you are clear for takeoff on runway 21.
Today is Thursday, July 9th, 2020, the 17th of Tammuz, 5780, and this is Canadian Jewish Views.
LL221 Toronto Tower, you are cleared to land on runway 33 right. Welcome to Canada. Welcome home.
CIJA is the proud advocacy agent of Jewish federations across Canada. I'm your host, Martin Sampson. Do you want to deepen your connection to your fellow Jews across this great land? Be provided a chance to take action on antisemitism and hear words of wisdom about why it's okay to be experiencing a sense of loss at the moment? Keep watching. Today on Views, we're talking about the world's oldest hatred and the disturbing rise of incendiary anti-Semitic rhetoric like this. That starts right now. On today's show, Wendy Eisen, community leader and community activist who was at the very center of the effort to liberate 1 million Jews from the Soviet Union. You're going to want to hear what she has to say about anti-Semitism today. In Chapter 2, I'll give you an update on what your advocacy agent has been up to over the last week. Thanks in part to anti-Israel activists deciding it was appropriate to chant "Jews are our dogs" in Arabic in a park in Mississauga, it's been a busy week. Mishagas, the chutzpah of these shmendriks is astonishing. That one was for you, SSF. In Chapter 3, we'll speak with Dr. Sandi Seigel, Vice President at NAMI Canada, who will tell us about a dark but little talked about consequence of COVID-19, domestic violence during a pandemic. And as always, we'll wrap with your favorite segment, Words of Wisdom, this week featuring Rabbi Eytan from Kehillat, Beth, Israel in Ottawa. Canadian Jewish Views is a product of CIJA. We're the advocacy agent of Jewish federations across Canada, and our mission is to preserve the quality of Jewish life in Canada through advocacy. If you value what we do, please share this post with your family and like our page so you continue to get this show in your feed every Thursday. Were you at the center of the effort in the 70s and 80s to liberate 1 million Jews from the Soviet Union? Me neither. Wendy Eisen is an impressive woman, former chair of UJA in Toronto, generous philanthropist, community leader, and community activist who is a member of the 35s, a group of women who were central players in the 70s and 80s in the story of the modern-day exodus of Soviet Jewry. If you don't know about this, Google it. It's an important chapter in the history of the Jewish people. Wendy is also a driving force behind a new and innovative approach to combating the scourge of anti-Semitism. I asked her to tell us about Maspik.
The Hebrew word Maspik means enough. And it's time that the Jews said to the world, it's enough. The goal of Maspik is to unite our Jewish community, and not only the Jewish community, Jewish and non-Jewish community, speaking out against the rising anti-Semitic trend today. Part of our strengths in the Soviet Jewry movement was that we reached out to the non-Jewish community and said to them, this is not a Jewish issue. This is a human rights issue. And we have many friends out there who will stand with us against anti-Semitism. I fear for my children and my grandchildren. My major fear is that anti-Semitism is going to scare them away and not give them the opportunity to be proud of their Jewish identity. And what Maspik will do is provide resources to a broad alliance of Canadian and Israeli organizations whose action-oriented programs are directed to arrest and reverse the anti-Semitic and anti-Zionist wave that is within our civil society today. Well, Maspik is reaching out to organizations, good organizations that have specific projects. And let's hope that Maspik will be the organization behind us to unite us and give us the strength and courage to speak out. Every one of us has to be an advocate. We have to speak out because silence will not achieve anything.
Thank you, Wendy. About Wendy and the 35s, the women's campaign to free Soviet Jewry, Natan Sharansky wrote, "One cannot possibly overstate the importance of the effective public pressure demonstrated by the Canadian Jewish community as a whole and of the 35s women's campaign in particular in the struggle for Soviet Jewry. The knowledge that our cause was actively supported by the thousands of our friends abroad while we battled the Soviet regime from behind the Iron Curtain was the lifeline which gave us the strength and energy to continue our struggle. Want to know more about the liberation of Soviet Jewry? Write to us at views@cija.ca. I'm giving away 5 copies of Wendy's book. They're signed. The book's called Count Us In, The Struggle to Free Soviet Jews. Time for your advocacy update. Busy, busy week. We exposed a business in Toronto called Food Benders who thought it appropriate to ban Zionists. Not only inappropriate, but warranted a complaint to the Human Rights Commission, which is underway. And you can join the fight. Link to the campaign below. We'd love you to add your name to our letter to the Human Rights Commission. We also reacted very strongly to a protest for Palestine that took place in a park in Mississauga, where the protesters chanted in Arabic that Palestine is our country and the Jews are our dogs. Ongoing action on this file, lots of it, so check the show notes to make sure you're up to date, and credit to the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs for capturing the video. And finally, we engaged Facebook in a constructive discussion that included a detailed description about why the Food Benders post violated Facebook's community standards. Thanks to that and the hundreds of complaints filed by community members just like you, it looks like the Food Benders account has been deactivated. That's a snapshot of what your advocacy agent has been up to this week. These stories are evolving rapidly, and at the time of recording, I may not have had all the information, so please check the show notes, including for opportunities on how you can take action. Our next guest is Dr. Sandra Seigel, Vice President of NAMI Canada, who awakened me to a dark and terrifying aspect of COVID-19, the increase in domestic violence. NAMI Canada is a Jewish, nonprofit, volunteer women's organization whose goal is to improve the lives of women, children, and families in Israel and Canada. I asked Dr. Seigel to tell us about what NAMI is doing during these challenging times.
Hello, my name is Sandra Seigel, and I'm National Vice President of NAMI Canada. And I want to talk to you about a very important issue that has come up during the COVID-19 crisis. NAMI has always supported women who have been in situations of domestic violence, both in Canada and in Israel. And I want to talk to you how NAMI in Israel has responded to increasing incidents of domestic violence during COVID-19. We've all been told to shelter at home, to stay safe, but unfortunately, home is not the safest place for women and children in situations of domestic violence. NAMI has always responded to this, and in particular through the Glickman Center for Prevention of Violence in the Family, as well as the Rodi Blanche Benarosh Center in the Glickman Center that supports the children who have been in these situations. What was apparent is that domestic violence was increasing and women were more isolated. So NAMI Israel took special effort to reach out to these women through a hotline, which they advertised widely through television and radio. In response to this hotline, they've had a lot of women contacting them who have been in very dire situations, and they've stepped up and responded to this need. And so I'm so proud to be a member of NAMI Canada and supporting efforts both in Canada and in Israel to deal with this situation of domestic violence. And if you would like to support our cause or join us at NAMI, you can find out more information by visiting our website at nami.com.
Thank you, Sandy. This show affords me the privilege of speaking with many impressive Jewish community leaders like Wendy and Sandy. They're good people working very hard for the Jewish community, and frankly, they're inspiring. If you're inspired by a leader in our community, why not tell them? Housekeeping. Hey, we really do want to hear from you. Write to views@cija.ca. Thanks for the hundreds of messages that we get. If what we're doing here is interesting to you, please like this post and the CIJA page. Also consider visiting CIJA.ca to sign up for our email list so you never miss an update from your advocacy agent. To take us home with words of wisdom, Rabbi Eytan of KBI in Ottawa.
This week we begin a period of time in the Jewish calendar known as the 3 weeks. It's the saddest time in the Jewish calendar as we mourn the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem. And while so much of the year is about coming together in celebration, this time of year is a reminder that there also needs to be a place to acknowledge our sadness, our grief, and our loss. So often as our religious leaders speak about this time, we talk about inspiration, we talk about the ability to move forward with light and with life. But it's also important to remind everyone that it's okay to be sad. It's okay to grieve, it's okay to feel a sense of loss. To realize those things that we've missed, whether it be camp or time with loved ones, a vacation or a memory that we hope to make. And as we acknowledge that sadness, as we live in that sadness, we can simultaneously know that there'll be a time where we're able to gather together again, with celebration, with joy, and with love. And we can all hope to experience that together in the new year.
Canadian Jewish Views is a product of CIJA. CIJA is the advocacy agent of Jewish federations across Canada, and federations are a hub of Jewish life for hundreds of thousands of Jews just like you. See you next week.